Hey gang, Redbeard here. Today I'm going to teach you a little bit about circuits. This is an introduction to circuits. So maybe you've seen some custom rooms that look really cool, and you've seen some interactive things in those games, and you're like, maybe I'd like to do those. And then you start to learn about circuits and they get a little bit overwhelming real quick. This tutorial is to say, hey, don't worry about it. They're actually pretty simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk to you about ins and outs. Then we're going to talk about wiring chips together. And then we're going to talk about constants. I have these three chips here as a good example. This first one is a variable chip. Next one is a Boolean chip set to AND. And the last one here is a game state chip. In this AND chip here, the clue's in the top. If you look up here, it says in and out. Essentially, any pin on the left side is numbers coming in, then the magic happens, and then on the right-hand side are the numbers coming out. So if we look at the variable chip, you can see the pins on the right, it's only going to push numbers out. So if you set a 1, 2, and a 3 in the red, green, blue, it will only ever send a 1, a 2, and a 3. This last chip only has pins on the left, which means numbers can go in, and that's it. Pretty simple, pretty basic. If you send a 1 to this red pin, it starts the game. If you send a 1 to the green pin, it stops the game. Really easy. Alright, next I'm going to show you how to wire chips together. And the reason you wire a chip to another chip is to send the number from one to the other. So for instance, this variable chip, let's say it has a 1 in the red pin. We want to send that over to the AND chip, and it'll do some magic, and then something will come out the other side. So to do that, you need your pen, and you can get your pen out of your watch. You simply look at your watch, and then go to your backpack. Go to backpack, and you see the pen over here. You just hit use, and there it is. Now to start wiring, one thing I recommend is to use an output chip. So let me show you how to do that. Look at your pen, hit palette, then you get your palette, and under gadgets, you go to other chips, and what you're looking for is the output chip right here on the bottom. I'm going to put one of those right here. Now the output chip is really good because what it'll do is tell you what's coming out of a chip. So to wire this on there, all you do is you look at your pen, and you go to wire, and then you're going to drag from the red to the red. Now we see a 0 coming out of here because this chip doesn't have any numbers in it. But let's add one real quick. To do that, you use configure. So you hit configure, then you hit the chip you want, pull out your palette, and it's red, green, blue. So let's put a 1 here, and then you can see up here in the output chip, we've got a 1. Pretty cool. So it's a good way to see what's happening on your chips, and if you're trying to bug check things, you want to use those as well. So let's clone this chip, and we'll put it on the AND, and we're going to see what happens. So to do that, you use clone on your pen. You hit clone, and then you can click and drag. I'm going to put one over there. Now we take our wire tool again off of our pen, and I'm going to wire from the red to the red, and that's set to 0 because nothing's happening here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put another number in the variable on green, and we're going to stick both of those in and see what happens when it comes out the other side. So to do that, again, take your pen tool, take configure, click on the variable chip, and then in your palette, we're going to put a 2 here. So let's put a 3 in the B signal. Now we take the wire tool, and we're going to wire the variable chip to the AND chip. Take the red one to the red one, and you can see AND is 1, green to green, blue to blue. So essentially what AND is doing is it's saying if there's a number coming into red, green, blue, then it's true and it pushes a 1. If it's false, it pushes a 0. Okay, so you can see how to wire these together, right? We've got the variable chip, we've put variables in each of these numbers, and then we wired them to the AND chip, and we can see that they both have an output. So that shows you the out and then the ins, and it also shows you an out up here. So let's go ahead and play with the game chip, and I'll show you how different variables combined with the AND will turn the game on. Okay, so what I've done is I've set this variable to 1, green to 0, and blue to 0, and you can see that with these output chips. They're still wired to the AND chip, and you can see up here it's coming out as a 0 because only one number is coming in here. It's essentially saying a number is coming in here, and here, but since it's false, it's sending a 0. So if we change these 3 digits to anything, that'll change to a 1. And if that changes to a 1 and we wire it to this chip, it'll start the game. So go ahead and pull your pen out and take wire tool. And then go from the red pin to the red pin. Now we're going to configure this variable chip. Configure, variable. And then on our palette, I'm going to put a 1 on the green signal. So now that we have a 1 coming out of the green signal and the red signal, you can see it's still 0 because the AND is waiting for one more number. Alright, so this is going to happen quick. As soon as I hit 1 on the B signal for blue pin, it's going to push over to the AND, and the AND's going to say, yep, everything is met, so go ahead and push a 1 over to the other chip. There we go, game starts. Alright, so that's the basics of wiring. Essentially what we did was we put some numbers into this variable chip, connecting them to output chips so we can see what those outputs were, and then use the wire tool to connect them to this Boolean chip set to AND. Alright, in this part of the video I'm going to teach you about constants. I'm going to wire the variable chip to the rotator, and that'll make the rotator move. And then we're going to unwire that, but send constants to the rotator so it'll rotate forever all on its own. So to do that, let's take out our pen tool, and then we're going to use wire, and go from red to red, and green to green. So on the rotator, the red pin is its on and off. So if you send a 1 to the rotator, it'll turn on. If you send a 0, it'll turn off. The green one is the speed. How fast do you want it to go? So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to configure the variable chip. So you can see the outputs are saying 0 because red is 0, green is 0. So if we send a 1 to red, it's going to turn the rotator on. And you can see the output says 1. On green, we're going to set that to, I don't know, let's go with 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there you go, rotator's rotating. And you can see in the output, we've got a 5. That's a pretty basic way to do a rotator, but if you're going to have something rotate, you don't need the variable chip. It's a waste of ink space. So let me show you how to do that. So the next thing I'm going to do is send constants to the rotator so it spins all by itself without the variable chip. That's one way to save some ink space. So to do that, first thing you want to do is turn off gizmos, and the way you do that is in your palette, you go to settings and play gizmos. Just turn that off, and that essentially resets its position. Now what I'll do is I'm going to delete the variable chip and the 2 outputs, and then we're going to turn gizmos back on. So to do a constant, all you need is to configure. So look at your pen, hit configure, and we get the 2 dots next to the gizmo. If you click on the top one, you get on and off. So we're going to set that to 1, that'll turn the gizmo on. And then we configure the speed, and we get a speed option. So let's set that to 5 again. Now it's not moving because I'm technically in configure mode. So all you got to do is hit edit, drop your pen, anything you want to do to get out of that. So you hit edit, and there goes the gizmo all by itself. Alright, that's really simple basic intro to circuits. We talked about circuits that have outputs, circuits that have inputs and outputs, circuits that have just inputs, and then we also talked about how to set constants. So one way you can learn more about circuits is to just dive in and start playing with them, but we also have 3 really good ways to get help from other players. One is our Discord channel, you can see that here on the bottom of the screen. The next thing you can do is sign up to be a student in any of the schools we have. We've got several of them just starting now, and they're everything from really easy intro to circuits to really complicated, more in-depth logic-based circuitry. There's also some really good building classes too. The last thing you can do is sign up to be a mentor or a mentee. The mentorship program is really designed to get one-on-one help with people. And essentially what you'll be able to do is say, hey, I'm trying to learn how to do this thing, and your mentor will go, okay, let me teach you that specific example. All right, that's it for the intro to circuits.